Welcome to the Thrive with OMU Podcast, where each week I'll chat with an amazing entrepreneur on their growth journey. They'll be sharing this with us to help and encourage us to take that bold step. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's edition of Thrive with OMU Podcast. And I have Dana with me here today. Hello, Dana.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking time to be with us on this podcast. How are you doing today?
Great. It's 6:30 in the morning here, and I'm had a great morning so far, so I'm looking forward to it.
And how is the weather in BC?
It's actually weirdly cold right now. It was really hot, and then it's like 20 degrees colder than it normally is this time of year. So global weirding.
It's very wet here. It's been raining all day.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, so tell us, who is Dana?
So I am a mindset and health coach and a yoga teacher. So I've been teaching yoga for 20 years and I've been coaching for 10 years. And I bring together 25 years of experience of Buddhism, Ayurveda, yoga, like the traditions of the East, with Western psychology, brain science, life coaching for a holistic approach to body, mind, spirit, health, and wellness. So I really love the science. I love neuroplasticity. I love to understand why we do what we do. And then I also love, the spiritual side and understanding that it's all connected and there's things that, there's energy that plays a part in everything. So that's me.
So I'm a Christian, and so I'm very protective of my faith, but then I also deal with mindset and limiting beliefs and how that affects people emotionally and otherwise. So, how did you get to this point? What challenges have you faced? Tell us your journey.
Yeah. So I think it really started when I had my first son, and I was living in New York City at the time in a really, really tiny apartment with my husband. And my husband's from Canada, which is where we live now. And so I was struggling as a new mom, as most new moms do. And here, we don't have a lot of support. I didn't have my family there with me. So it was really hard. And I was suffering from postpartum depression. I wasn't getting any sleep. Eventually, we moved to where we live now, Kelowna, BC. And it's a small town. So I went from living in New York City to a really small town where I felt like I didn't belong. I felt lonely. I was stressed. I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. And I was a yoga teacher. So, I had 1 hour a day that I would do yoga and I would feel a sense of peace. But then 30 minutes later, I just went back to feeling the way I was feeling. And so I felt like something was missing and I didn't really know why. And I didn't know what, because if I looked around at my life, everything was fine. Like I had a family, a great family. I had a healthy child, a great husband. There was no reason for me to not be happy or to be feeling good. So my journey led me to Ayurveda, which is yoga's sister science, it's really a holistic approach to health. And it's all about daily habits and routines. And I learned so much about just how to take care of myself in a way that I never did before. And so I slowly started to change my habits and things like eating dinner a little bit earlier and going to bed a little bit earlier and waking up in the morning and having a very deliberate morning routine where I did some exercise, I did some meditation, I did some journaling. And as I started to make these lifestyle changes, I started to feel so much better on every level. So I had more energy physically, my immune system got stronger, I felt happier, my postpartum depression went away. I felt like I was more in control of my life for the first time. I really felt like, okay, I know I'm in control of my time, I'm in control of my life, and I felt a sense of agency that I didn't really feel like I had before. And the biggest shift for me was that I felt like I had a sense of purpose for the first time, because it profoundly affected my life so much that I knew I wanted to share it with more people. So that's when I just started 10 years ago sharing this work with other people. And then I really got more and more interested in habit change and how, it's like we know what to do most of the time. That's not the problem. It's actually, how do we make the changes? How do we create new habits? How do we break old habits? So that's when I started to get more and more interested in how to really help people change when they want to change, but they struggle and they just keep self-sabotaging and they keep hitting their head against the wall and they keep going back to the same old behaviors. And, you mentioned the limiting beliefs, and that's such a big part of it. It's, those subconscious beliefs that just keep us stuck in the same patterns over and over and over again. So that's really but what I've been focusing on a lot in my work.
Wow. I heard you say something about having a routine.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as a coach, I should know better. Can you explain how having a routine can create such a dramatic change in our mental state and even in our physical state?
Yeah. So in Ayurveda, one of the principles is that we are connected to nature, and whatever is happening in nature is also happening inside of our bodies on a micro level. So we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. And so when we can understand how nature affects us and how the cycles of nature, it's like circadian rhythms, how the different times of the day affect us and our energy, and we start to align with those energies, then our body functions better, because they've found now in circadian science that all our organs have these little internal clocks where different things happen in the body at different times. So when we're eating...
Sorry to interrupt you. So in other words, when it's time to sleep, at a certain time, the body needs to sleep. So sleep.
Yes, exactly. So you're going to have better quality sleep when you sleep at the right time, and you're going to digest your food better when you eat at the right time.
At the right time.
And everything's going to work better, and you're going to feel better, and you're going to heal faster when you align with these cycles. So that's one reason. And the other thing is the body just thrives on routine. And we know this if you have children, that children really like that stability of that consistent routine is very grounding to the nervous system. So when we kind of have routines that are all over the place, our nervous system is a little bit like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. And it doesn't feel settled. It doesn't feel grounded.
Yeah. It doesn't know what to expect
exactly
at any time. So it's just alert. It's like not knowing what to expect, really. I get that.
Exactly. So even just simple things like going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, eating at the same time, if you just get those things a little bit more consistent, the whole nervous system can relax a little bit more, because it knows what to expect. It's like, okay, it's eating time, and we just create a rhythm to our lives, and it also just frees up energy, and it generates energy, especially for we have good healthy routines where we are getting enough sleep and we are eating the right foods and we are exercising and moving our bodies. Then we have the energy and the focus, we're more productive, we're able to have more stable moods, less stress. So there's so many benefits to building these habits, but it isn't always that's the challenge, is how to create them.
I'm actually laughing because I'm thinking of myself. Some days I go to bed at 2 a.m. Other days at 9 I go to bed at 2 a.m. Some other days I go to bed at 8 p.m. Other days, even I don't know when I'm going to go to bed. Some days I'm awake till morning. Some days I wake up very early. So, I've never intentionally, I do know about the routine, but I've never intentionally thought of extending it towards the time I go to bed and the time I wake up. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So that this is really something that I need to work on. And then, of course, with the meal times, there's no set time, even though you're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but there's no intentionality to have it even if it meant giving it a window, let's say between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. So yeah, I think we need to be more intentional about that. Also,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it now. My stomach wants to know when to expect its next meal, not this minute you go past a cookie and you chuck it in your mouth.
Exactly. Yeah, it really does. And digestion, when you have that consistent mealtime, the digestion revs up when it's time to eat. And so I think of our digestion as like a campfire. If the fire is not hot, it's not going to burn the food and it's not going to create the energy. If there's, dry, wet logs and you're trying to put food on wet logs, it's not going to burn. It's not going to digest properly. And so that can cause a lot of digestive issues and just prevent you from having the energy you need to be able to do everything. And as, entrepreneurs and, and anyone, energy is so important. Being able to just do everything that we want to do in a day and feel our best.
So you did that and it worked for you, and you decided to spread the word and also help people achieve the same results that you did. We're going through that, what did you call it? The
Postpartum depression?
Postpartum depression. Now, a lot of people actually go through that.
Yes.
And it's funny because I think people had been going through it and we just never realized that's what they were going through. And we had all sorts of names for it. In fact, where I come from, they come up with all sorts of theories as to what happened to the woman after she gave birth, even with some people insinuating that the child came with bad luck, but all sorts of things. But now we know better. And from what I've seen, I think that with each woman that suffers it, it's different. For some people, it's really, really serious. It's almost like they're going, and for some others, they know they're depressed, but you might not be able to tell from just seeing them. So what advice would you give a woman who is pregnant now and is worried about it? Or a woman who is going through it at the moment, even though I know that sometimes when you're in that phase, the last thing you're going to be doing is listening to a podcast.
Right. Yeah.
But just in case there's one of them who's listening, or a friend who is listening, or a sister or something, what would you, just quick steps that they can hop on immediately?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can build some of these habits before you have a child, it will help. But sometimes awesome. I only discovered this stuff after I had a child. So that's okay. That's, it's all meant to happen the way it happens. But I really think it's prioritizing self-care. And it's so hard. I think part of the problem is we're so sleep deprived when we're, and we just, it's so hard to get enough sleep because we have to feed our child at, all hours of the day and night. And in the West, and I don't know how it is where you live, but there's just not a lot of support for new moms. Yeah. And so I think if you can find a way to create a support system, because there's so much to do, and you have to figure out how to take care of a new baby, which none of us really know what that's like until we actually do it.
Absolutely.
And then also some, for me, I was still trying to do all the cooking and the cleaning and doing everything else on top of being awake all hours of the day and night. So it's so much for one person, even, a couple, that if you can find a way to get more help, that's, I think, a big thing. We used to live in communities where everyone's together and the grandmothers and the extended family and everyone's helping. But in the West, it's not really like that anymore, which is a shame. I think that contributes. And I don't know what it was like, 100 years ago. I don't know if women still suffered from postpartum depression or not. Maybe they did. Maybe
they did, but they didn't know what it was. But then again, I believe that in those days, things were not as bad because I think they ate healthier.
Yeah. So a support system, I think if there's a way for you to, again, build these habits of just, eating regular, making sure you're getting good quality food, you're providing your body with the best nourishment, and you're resting. Because I think in the West, again, it's like we feel like we need to be busy and productive and still get everything done, and we don't give ourselves permission to actually just rest. So I think it's so cultural. I think that's part of what's contributing is the expectations that we put on ourselves. And then we add a baby into the mix, and it's so hard. It's just, impossible to maintain all that. And we try so hard to maintain everything that it just puts so much stress on our bodies. And it's, and we're already so depleted from just going through birth, and our hormones are all over the place. And
Awesome. Those are very good tips, and I'm sure that the listeners will find them very useful. So before we wrap up, is there any other thing you want to let us into that we haven't mentioned?
I would just say that, when we recognize, okay, I do want to change some habits, I do want to create some better routines, I think the tendency is to want to change too fast. And we try to make a complete 180, and that doesn't work, because we can do that just for a short amount of time, because it takes a lot of effort to make big changes. And the way that change happens is slowly and with baby steps. So even if I was when I'm helping my clients, for example, changing their sleep times, if you're going to bed at the latest at 2, so we would start at like 1:30 and then 1, and then 12:30, and then 12.
Instead of going all the way to 9.
Right. So that you also just give your body a chance to get used to the change, and you're not shocking your system, but also mentally, it's so hard mentally to make that big of a shift. And so I would say, if you can just take away one thing, make changes slowly and make tiny changes. So make them so easy that it's just, there's not a lot of resistance. It's so easy. You can't say no. And then maintaining, and then just slowly, incrementally improving until you are where you want to be. And, it's a never ending journey. I mean, there's always improvements to be made, but if you can approach them with a lot of patience and moving slowly, which is, in our culture, it's like go hard or go home, and it's like all or nothing, So it is a switch that we have to make mentally, because I think we often are impatient, and we often do want results now, and we want to make the changes fast, but that's not how changes are created. It is slowly, because we have to wrap our minds around the changes, and those limiting beliefs are really the thing that get in the way. So it's like really looking at what is preventing you from making those changes. Why does it seem hard? And looking at some of those beliefs to see what you need to change at the root.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dana. I've taken away quite a number of tips.
Great.
I'm still going to work on the routine bits.
Yeah. Let me know how it goes.
Thank you. Hey guys, we just had this amazing time with Dana, and you want to check her out if you need to work on your routine like I do. Dana, thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, guys, I'm out. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Thrive with OMU Podcast. This is your host, OMU Obilo.